Welcome to part 2 of Lancaster Environment Centre's January 2022 departmental conference. Next Steps in Research celebrated researchers studying the next steps for peoples and societies and those taking their next step in project development. This is a recording of conference session 2 with speakers Ian Dodd, Rachel Marshall and Andy Yuille presenting and taking questions from the online audience. If you have questions for any of the speakers, you can find links to their contact pages in the video description, along with a link to the full conference programme. As with part 1, we hope you'll forgive us the technical glitches and background noises associated with domestic life, as many of us were working from home at the time of recording. You're welcome to switch on subtitles or closed captions if you find the sound difficult. I'll leave you in the capable hands of Professor Oliver Wild, our Associate Director for Research and Chair of our conference.
So first up, we have Ian Dodd, to give us a summary of where we are with Recirculate. So over to you, Ian.
Great, thank you, Oliver. Hopefully you can see the screen and hear me okay.
Yep, that's good.
That's brilliant. Well, unfortunately, everyone, Captain Kirk of the Starship Recirculate is unable to be here this morning. If I can move to my next slide, we have actually images of him seen not in the outer reaches of the galaxy, but actually in Accra in Ghana, where he has been engaging with stakeholders this week, particularly involved in trying to ensure project legacy from Recirculate. There is nothing like the end of a project to sort of, focus the mind on where we might go next within this piece of work. I suspect many of you are very familiar with Recirculate and have probably heard about it throughout the course of its duration. But we are approaching the last couple of months of this project, which is a sobering thought, considering we've had more than 4 years of this work. We've endured 3 lockdowns. We've had countless parties. Entrepreneurial events, and it's been, quite a significant piece of work. So the aim of Recirculate is something that, I think all the projects we've heard about already have demonstrated amply. That, within our universities and research institutes, we want to be doing work that attracts the attention of government and influences policy. We want to engage with industry and the private sector, but also civil society and communities. And within Recirculate, which is a project that the Centre for Global Eco-Innovation has been heavily involved with, the mantra has very much been co-design, co-development and co-delivery. And this is something I think at Lancaster we're very good at. We're used to working in this way. And what we wanted to do within Recirculate was try and see whether this way of working was something that our African partners were also doing effectively. And I guess what we've found is there's been huge variation, as perhaps you might expect, in just how different research institutes engage with their communities. We've heard already Shane talk about the circular economy and the need for transformations within UK food systems to ensure circularity of phosphorus. Recirculate is very much a project about the circular economy. And, the image here shows quite nicely, I think, the sort of aim of Recirculate in a generic sense, that we would want to take raw materials, and obviously I highly support the raw materials in this diagram, given that they are water and plants, and that is effectively my research interests. And then ultimately we aim to sort of reduce the waste from some of the processes that we enshrine for human benefit. And within Recirculate, the aim is to try and develop new products, processes or interventions that benefit both society and the environment. And the system we are working with is illustrated here. And we recognise that there are various sources of waste within our communities, examples being human waste or agricultural waste, and currently the management of these wastes is not optimal. There is perhaps an opportunity to take some of that waste and, using some of our chemical engineering knowledge, place that waste into anaerobic digestion to generate both biogas and electricity. Of course, there is a waste from this anaerobic digestion process, but we should look at this as a resource that we could use this nutrient-rich resource in agricultural systems as potentially a fertilizer or soil condition. And with appropriate irrigation techniques that are water use efficient, we might be able to use some of this this digestate to grow crops that ultimately can be used to feed back some of the waste from the agricultural system into the digester. So Recirculate has a series of work packages related to water for health and sanitation. And this is the work that Manoj in LEC and Roger Pickup in the School of Health and Medicine have been leading. Then we have Alistair Martin and Kirk looking particularly about the anaerobic digestion process. Mariana and myself looking at water for food as a work package. And throughout this process, we've been looking for commercial opportunities in conjunction with Joanne Larty and the management school. Beyond Recirculate, there's also been an opportunity to bid for some more translational funds. And there's another sort of sister or daughter project, Actuate, which is designed to try and generate impact from all the research that is going on within Recirculate. There's been significant engagement with stakeholder communities, and I've got some examples of that in the next couple of slides. Joanne and her team in the management school are very interested in studying this entrepreneurial ecosystem, and one way in which we believe we can engender change within some of our African communities by engaging with young people, and particularly also entrepreneurs within this ecosystem. So the Actuate project was another GCR project, in this case focused on translation. And by engaging with a number of partners, and you'll see schools and businesses involved in this project, the aim has been to build two demonstrators of digesters at a couple of sites at the University of Benin and an Islamic school in Ghana. And I think that's where Kirk was when we had his image taken. So the aim is to provide solutions to waste management to improve the health of communities, recognising that human waste disposal is still a significant challenge in some of these peri-urban communities. We want to ensure that young people particularly gain acceptance of the technology of anaerobic digestion and can act as change makers, particularly within their communities, to try and ensure that human waste is disposed of effectively to reduce the disease burden. More particularly, we accept that there are different business models that can be applied to actually facilitate the more wide-scale adoption of these digesters. So the good news is these digesters have been built. You can see the examples here at the University of Benin and at the school in Ghana. And they have been the nucleus for a wide range of sort of public engagement events with the great and the good, as you can see in the suits, attending launch events of these digesters. We can also see examples of community leaders, but also schools actually learning about the process and how this can benefit their societies. So there's been a huge range of project partners engaged within Recirculate and also Actuate from the range of actors that we would typically expect to see. So just in the last few minutes, we need to think, well, where do we go from here? And certainly Kirk on this visit to West Africa that he's conducting at the moment is championing the idea of a research hub in West Africa, which I think builds nicely on Lancaster University's engagement within the area via LU Ghana. And the aims are to try and bring together universities and institutes based in West Africa to develop partnerships and then bid for funds. So at the most recent Recirculate project meeting, that was a bilateral event, or actually a trilateral event that was conducted both in person in Lancaster, in the University of Benin, but also in Accra, where we had, fortunately, the technology worked, and we had projection of our talks, to the other partners. We spent some time sort of developing some embryonic bids with our partners to put to Horizon Europe to try and continue this work. We also recognise there's significant opportunities to bid for World Bank funds as well. The aim of Recirculate, in addition to conducting the research, has been to build capacity, and I think there's also multiple opportunities to engage with the postgraduate communities in these universities in West Africa, but also the business sector. So as we've sort of continued on the journey of Recirculate, it's become apparent that there are many more partners that have recognised what we are doing and are seeking to buy in to this philosophy. And so, the hope is to, continue to develop these multidisciplinary, multi-sectoral collaborations in a number of developing areas, particularly the environment, the circular economy, agriculture and food security, and health and well-being. And there's a number of research entities within Lancaster University that I think can contribute specific expertise to help us realise this ambition. So already, I think, via Recirculate and a number of the partnerships that have been established, there is substantial activity of Lancaster within West Africa. I think we've developed a critical mass of partnerships, and there's some great multidisciplinary collaborations going on. What we need to give some attention to is future funding opportunities, and I think that's why Kirk is very much out there at the moment, talking to some of the senior management within these project partners, and there's a range of partners we can engage with. It also has to be recognised that there are opportunities for student recruitment here as we become better known within the region, and certainly I've noticed within the master's project, the master's modules that I teach over the last couple of years, an increasing number of African students. And, again, there are opportunities out there to engage with funders such as the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission or Chevening to actually achieve this increase in postgraduate recruitment here. In addition to the West African Research Hub operating out of Ghana, there's significant links that Kirk has established with Nigeria, but also via some of our partners within East and Southern Africa that are involved in Recirculate. There's also opportunities for engagement there in recognising that a lot of the challenges for sustainable development that Africa faces are indeed common to West and other parts of Africa. And I think this is particularly important given that I think the population projections are by 2050 there will be 2 billion people in Africa. And clearly this represents a huge challenge to the environment and our ability to deliver sustainable health and sanitation and sustainable agriculture and sustainable energy generation. And it's those themes of Recirculate that I think we can continue to develop by engaging with these partners. So thanks very much. I realise that's been a whistle-stop tour, but hopefully you've learned a little bit more about Recirculate and our philosophy from today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ian, for a great summary of Recirculate and actuating their successes, and also for that vision of what we can do and continue to do and build on in West Africa. That's great. Quick question from Paul Withers there in the chat. I was wondering what spatial scale the Recirculate paradigm works best at, and what lessons there might be for delivering circular economy in the UK.
Yeah, I think one of the sort of phrases I adopted there, Paul, but might not have said is think globally, act locally. And I think that's been very much behind the building of the digesters at the school at the University of Benin, where the aim very much is to sort of take food waste from those sites and feed them back into the digester. Having said that, I think this can be relatively easily upscaled but I think there's always the challenge of land ownership. So earlier in the week, I was an anaerobic digester in Cumbria, 110 kilowatts it was generating. So to put that into some kind of perspective, the university wind turbine generates 2 megawatts. But the land bank required to sustain that anaerobic digester in Cumbria was substantial. So this is a very wealthy businessman who had extensive land holdings, and that was necessary because of the need to try and have some sort of control over the inputs required to feed that anaerobic digester. So the reality is that yes, they were buying in some feedstocks for the digester, but no more than about 25%. So, I think there are opportunities for upscaling, but in that upscaling, there is complexity because there necessarily has to be collaboration agreements, contracts, etc., to ensure that the digestion model works at scale. And of course, when humans are involved, there are additional complexities in terms of guaranteeing supply and demand of products to feed a digester of that kind of scale. I think you're on mute, Oliver.
Thanks so much, Ian. Sorry about that. Yes, rookie error again. There we are. Yeah, thanks. I mean, but clearly there are possibilities for the UK as well. There are clearly challenges at the same time. There are some more questions in the chat, so if I could encourage you to answer those in due course. But thanks very much indeed for that summary. Next up, we have Urban Revolution project and moving forward into Quench. So we have Rachel Marshall and Andy Yuille to give us an overview of where they are and where they're going. So I think first off we have Rachel.
Yes, hi, thank you everyone. Is that good? Everyone can see that?
That looks good. Great.
Great. Yeah, so thank you. It's really nice to be here and have a chance to speak to everyone virtually. And yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of quite a lot of people, particularly with the Urban Revolution project, and this is something that Jess Davies has been the PI of for the past 2.5 years, I think, up to 3 years. And this project is kind of about the Urban Revolution project a bit, and then moving on to how I've become involved through this Urban Hotspots project, and on to Quench, which we launched as a network back in December, just before Christmas, and you might have seen some of the emails going around promoting and talking about that. But the links are really all around reimagining our urban ecosystems and starting from the premise really of food. So yeah, the Urban Revolution project really started with a sandpit, and this was launched by the Global Food Security Programme to support new interdisciplinary collaborations between early career researchers, and they were asked to address kind of the food system challenges around resilience and sustainability. And as part of this, Jess led a bid with 3 co-Is who all brought a very different set of experience and expertise. So there's Jess, an environmental scientist, there was a plant scientist, a psychologist and a management scientist. And they wanted to look at exploring the transformative potential of urban food growing for health, sustainability and resilience. And then the project was split across, the project was successful, it was funded as part of the sandpit, and it was split across 3 institutions, so Lancaster, University of Liverpool and Cranfield. And it brought on a team of researchers, and you can see many of the faces here, and you see some familiar faces, as well as obviously the ones at other institutions. And similar to many projects over the past couple of years, I think it started in 2019, so it was obviously really impacted by COVID-19. And it led to having to modify experiments and adding in new research questions to address some of the challenges that urban lockdowns brought up that were particularly pertinent to this issue. And I just wanted to give some key kind of highlights from the project. And at the bottom, I've included the published papers. And there's still papers coming out actually from the project, and I guess more highlights that will come. But these are 3 kind of main kind of messages that have jumped out or come out of the research. So Urban demonstrated that there is a large potential for utilising urban green space to support horticultural production, and there's a lot of different types of green spaces in our urban areas. They showed, the project researchers showed that urban food growing was associated with better dietary health, more sustainable food choices and an improved sense of well-being. And the research also showed that growing spaces offer as wide a range of ecosystem services as non-edible green spaces, and there's considerable benefits of combining edible and non-edible spaces in urban areas. But Urban was also a chance to do some other things. So when I was chatting to Jess about the project, she said it was a really amazing opportunity to work as an interdisciplinary team. And the first time that some people had, or many of the team have had a chance to do that. And there's a chance to learn different methods and then take different lenses, but to the same kind of questions. They got to explore lots of emerging questions as well, collaborate and work with other researchers working in this kind of growing field of urban agriculture, to identify kind of further research needs and kind of help shape their own project, but shape some of the projects that have come out of it that we'll talk about in a minute. And there was also a chance to support the development and be involved in kind of the development of new networks. And there's quite a lot of community activity and community work and policy work, like local policy work around urban food growing. It's only recently in the past few years becoming more joined up with different places becoming connected and sharing ideas, and also identifying kind of knowledge gaps and where research can help fill some of those knowledge gaps. And yeah, it's been to be part of that network building process. And one of the projects that came out of it, and one of the main ways that I've become involved in it, is through the Urban Hotspots project. And this was really a chance to work with local partners as well as national partners like the Urban Agriculture Consortium to have a look at translating some of the headline kind of national scale findings from the land mapping work and look at how that translates into land available at a local scale and how it could be translated into policy and practice. And the project also emerged from discussions with collaborators, and this is both, like I've said, national and our local collaborators, who are all very interested in how communities and small-scale urban food growing businesses can map access to land for food growing, and how local council policy can support and increase kind of local food production. And yeah, there's a list of the partners there. So this was a ESRC Impact Acceleration account at Lancaster. They funded the project, so it was not so much focused on research, but more focused on impact from current research. And obviously, it's very hard actually not to do research, even when you're doing an impact project. So we have more findings that have come from the piece of work. And as a project, we wanted to look at what data we can use to help guide decisions over land suitability for food growing in urban areas, and look at whether it's possible to combine data sets to identify this idea of hope spots, so areas where you can get multiple benefits from having food growing. So you can have environmental benefits, human health, kind of mental health well-being benefits, as well as food production capability. And this slide here gives an overview of the project. And what we did is we took a number of different types of data, and this was open source data sets, so things that anyone can access, research access data, local council data, as well as trying to combine in some local knowledge. And we use an open source GIS program, QGIS, with the idea that whatever we do, we want other people to be able to recreate the same type of process in their own place. And actually for me, I'd never used GIS before, so I'm the guinea pig of how easy is it actually to do. And we've been working with a GIS expert, Mark Thurston from Paxton Snow, who's actually been helping me kind of understand how you can use data in GIS, and I'm kind of translating that into, okay, how could anyone do this? Because I've come with very little knowledge of that. And the reason we wanted to use a GIS is that enables obviously the data to be mapped, enables us to search the data for different attributes that might be useful for food growing and the other things we're interested in, and enables us to meld data sets together to create visualizations or maps and identify kind of this hope spots list for where different criteria overlap. And from this, we've developed a number of different models. So model 1 will use open source data only, and the main output for that is a transferable methodology, like a land mapper's guide that anyone can use. Model 2 is research access data on top of the open source data. And the idea of this is to actually look at what added benefits do we get from using some of these data sets that have restricted use, and is it valuable to have discussions about how we open up those data sets so that communities can use them or local policymakers can use them. And then model 3 is using our local data in collaboration with our local council, and this is going to give us a more practical kind of output of a list of potential locations for upscaling food growing, urban food growing in Lancaster district. And underpinning all of this, we have the land ownership data. So how do we actually find out who owns land? What are the restrictions and trouble and the issues with that? So there's a lot of questions kind of emerging around data access and who can pay for data and who can't afford to pay for data, and how that limits communities and being able to make decisions. Just to give you an idea, I won't spend too long on this slide. It's like of the types of data sets we looked at and what kind of questions we were asking. We had our open space exclusions, so places you wouldn't want to see food growing potentially. There's obviously discussions about that as well, but these are decisions that we made to sort of exclude these areas. So nature reserves, woodlands, triple SIs. And we also took out cemeteries, play areas, tennis courts and playing pitches in the Ordnance Survey open space data, but we left in lots of other kinds of areas like parks and then site suitability. We looked at a number of different things again that were available open source, so topography and aspect, the flood risk area zones, and we also tried to look at proximity to community. So we did some food desert mapping and also worked with some other people that have been doing more detailed food desert mapping. We tried to find a list of contaminated sites and whether there was a data set that was easy to use with contaminated sites, and that proved slightly problematic and something people need to look at on a more kind of site by site level. We looked at soil quality, so land quality in terms of agricultural land classification is open source, but it's very broad brush. So one of the things we've looked at is actually if we take more detailed kind of research data, so the land cover maps that you can get through Digimap, or historic maps that you can also get through Digimap, like that enable you to see kind of where we used to have allotments and where we used to see glass houses, and the land cover map that enables you to see kind of different types of habitats and what's arable and what's improved grassland. Do we actually get any added benefits of using those those more restricted data sets, less accessible data sets? And then we also had this additional information like the local council data that they'd collected themselves, things around future land use and land ownership. And then from this, we have a number of different outputs. So we're creating these open source methodologies. So I'm writing this land mappers guide. Mark, the GIS expert's writing a set of code and kind of instructions on GitHub, which is an open source platform for enabling developers and programmers to kind of add into each other's code and develop new ideas. And the idea of that is that people can continue to add in like different data sets, different ways of working with data sets that are open source. We're creating visualizations and data layers, both for kind of use in detail, but also some visualizations to really discuss like what can we grow where, if you think about growing in different ways. And we also created a Lancaster walking trail, which was exploring some of the strange bits of land we have around the city centre, and hearing from local communities that might be using them for food growing, or discussing some of the kind of data issues behind some of these areas and things that we need to consider before we start growing food in urban areas. And that's available still. It's you can go around and do it, or you can do it online, and it's available from the Future Places Centre webpage, which is there on the slide. And then we also became part of kind of a new collaboration of UK land mappers, because there's a lot of different people around the UK communities trying to map land for different purposes, but mainly for food growing or for small scale businesses. And it's been really good coming together and sharing methods and checking that we're not duplicating the effort, and kind of sharing different ideas on what's available, what data sets would be useful for this. And as with so many things, more questions and have arisen, and we were also lucky to have an opportunity to sort of follow up some of these ideas. And so with the Urban project, and then obviously with the hotspots mapping project as well, we've had a number of different questions that come up from our collaborators and also through the research. So for instance, like what aspects of urban green space deliver benefits for human health and well-being and biodiversity? And how do we translate environmental science methods to help us us researchers and policymakers design these urban green infrastructures that are starting to urban green infrastructure strategies that are starting to come out through, or starting to be developed both nationally and locally. And so in September last year, when NERC announced their call to facilitate a network on the theme of the role of environmental quality and the health benefits of connecting with nature, Jess and me and others in the urban team thought it would be a good opportunity to make the case that the network should focus on urban ecosystems and the urban environment. Given that urban environments are critical settings for where people and nature intersect, and the majority of people globally live in towns and cities. So yeah, we were awarded the funding in November 2021, and the Quench Network was born. And I think Andy is going to speak next and do next slides. I'll do the next slide.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so I'm going to be really quick with this. Yeah, so the Quench Network really builds on the questions and approaches and the learning that came up through those engagements with stakeholders and across disciplines. As you can see from the screen, the idea of Quench is to link together the quality of urban environments, nature connectedness and health, with a focus on working out what data we actually need in order to strengthen the connections between those elements. Because there's loads of evidence that contact with nature has physical and mental health benefits, and more recent research suggests that those benefits don't just automatically come from exposure or from time spent in green spaces, but they depend on the ways in which people engage or connect with nature. Next slide, please. But there's a lot less understanding about how the quality of the environment affects this nature connectedness. Rach, are you able to advance the slide on?
I've tried. I think it's maybe because I'll try again.
If you can't, it doesn't matter.
Sorry.
Okay, so we know that connection with nature, we know that exposure to nature, time spent in nature, does deliver health benefits. We know that that depends to an extent on nature connectedness, the way that we connect with the environment, but there's a lot less understanding about how the quality of the environment actually affects this nature connectedness. So, for example, how water quality or biodiversity levels affect how we physically, mentally and emotionally engage with nature. And as Rachel said, urban ecosystems are particularly crucial in this respect because it's where most people live, and they're also deeply under-researched. So with this project, we want to know how the properties of urban ecosystems contribute to nature connectedness, or to the lack of it, and thence on to health outcomes, and especially to health inequalities. And to explore that, we're building a multidisciplinary cross-sector network. So we're bringing together academics from environmental, social and health-related sciences, and also practitioners who deal with these issues on a day-to-day basis, like planners, policymakers, green space managers, health professionals, and NGOs and so on. Next slide, if you can. So what we're doing first is to convene a series of workshops in February and March, which hopefully you will have seen emails about already, which are intended to build up a picture of the existing knowledge base we have in this space, what the gaps are in it, and the opportunities to bring together methods and skills and experience from different disciplines and different sectors to address those gaps. One key outcome of that will be to fund 5 proof of concept studies to actively tackle some of those gaps. So these studies will be developed by the participants themselves in those workshops with the help of expert mentors and pitched to the network at the end of the process to decide which ones get taken forward. And if you like the sound of that, the deadline to apply for the workshops is this Monday. It's a very short application form, so please do check it out, and also pass the details on to any contacts you have who might be interested. The details will be in the last slide, or just Google Quench Lancaster. Next slide. So beyond the workshops, we're also developing a wider network of academics and practitioners to start building a community that can both generate and take advantage of future opportunities to take this agenda forwards. And we're also going to be producing resources highlighting the key knowledge gaps that we found and the challenges and the opportunities in this space, and an online repository of methods and tools, resources and challenge for more people to address. And next slide, please. Okay, so the idea is to sow the seeds for long-term collaborations and to provide a direction and a set of resources for a new research and practice community. So effectively, kind of in line with the theme of the conference, it's all about next steps. And about building some foundations so that we and other people can take those steps kind of together and in complementary ways. And I was told I only have 3 minutes, so that's all you get for now. But do check out the website, sign up for the mailing list, encourage people to apply for the workshops, and we will take some questions if we've got time.
Thank you very much indeed, both of you, Rachel and Andy. Very nice summary of the Reuben activities and its and the future and where it goes in Quench. I think some great interdisciplinary research there, and it's good to see right at the beginning the value of sandpits for kicking things off. So that's again a great lesson. If you have any questions, actually, we had a question from Nadia actually about why playgrounds were ruled out in the hope spots, because that would be a nice place to grow food.
Yeah, I think we I think by playgrounds I'm thinking about those little bits where you have the fence around in the middle of a park, that are just sort of normally got the safe surface for kids to fall on, and then so yeah, I thought kept them separate, put the food around the outside of it. But yeah, a lot of these things are quite, you make a decision and actually other people might have a different idea, and it's in like Becky Whittle might still be on the call here, but I know in Scotch Quarry she's been doing, they set up a forest garden in one part of the corner, and now they're talking about what they could do in the rest of the quarry, and there's a play park area, and they're asking like the community actually what do you want to see. So yeah, I made a decision, but it doesn't mean that's the right decision. And the idea of the methodology is that it doesn't really set those kind of parameters for people. It just shows people how they can access the data, how they can manipulate the data and make their own decisions about what they think or where they'd like to see food growing.
That's great, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Anyone want to raise a hand? Okay, well, so if people have questions, of course, they can put them in the chat. Let's say thanks so much indeed for that. Yeah, great summary of the work and the way things are going forward with Quench. That's great. Good luck with it. Yeah. So if I could thank all speakers from this session, it's been very useful to see where we are with these great projects and good to see the steps going forward. Thanks to all our speakers today. It's been a very interesting set of talks. It's great to catch up with what's been going on in the department, and also to see the potential. So thanks very much indeed to all of you for updating us on what's happening.
I reiterate Oliver's thanks to all of the speakers in Lancaster Environment Centre's Next Steps in Research Winter Conference 2022, especially Ian, Rachel and Andy who've presented here, and Elizabeth Carmo-Silva for the fascinating presentation she gave on the progress and future of the International Plant Science Project RIPE. We aren't able to share her talk, but links to the project and Elizabeth's profile are in the video description if you'd like to find out more about it. A huge thanks to you for watching this video, of course, and I encourage you to check out the Session 1 video if you haven't already, as well as our keynote from Dr. Paul Young, which will be uploaded as a LEC seminar in the LEC seminar playlist. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tick the notification bell so that you know straight away when that goes live. Thanks again from me, Ali Burkitt, Research Promotion Coordinator here at Lancaster Environment Centre, Lancaster University.